Picture yourself entering a crowded room where everyone wears masks, some smiling, some frowning, yet none revealing their true selves. Now, imagine stepping into this environment without any disguise, lacking both the capacity and the desire to manipulate those around you. How long would you survive? How quickly would society label you naive, foolish, or weak? This predicament forms the tragic foundation of Prince Mishkin's story in Fyodor Dostoyevsky's masterpiece, The Idiot. Mishkin embodies pure-heartedness, unfailing honesty, and limitless compassion, yet instead of admiration, these qualities earn him ridicule, manipulation, and eventually destruction by a society incapable of comprehending genuine goodness. This isn't merely a tale from 19th century Russia. It reflects an enduring truth about human nature that resonates powerfully today. Why do virtuous individuals consistently find themselves disadvantaged? Why does sincerity invite mockery rather than respect? And most crucially, if goodness leads to suffering, does it retain its value? By the conclusion of this exploration, you'll gain a revolutionary perspective on kindness, morality, and the hidden dangers of excessive goodness in a world that celebrates cunning. The final insight, perhaps the most startling, will transform your perception not only of society, but of yourself. To understand why goodness is frequently mistaken for foolishness, we must examine what society truly values. We claim to admire honesty, kindness, and integrity, but do we genuinely prize these qualities, or merely tolerate them when they don't interfere with our personal objectives? Throughout history, those who ascend to power rarely embody pure goodness. Instead, they excel at navigating complex human dynamics, recognizing when ruthlessness serves better than charm, and concealing their true intentions behind meticulously crafted personas. Niccolò Machiavelli argued in The Prince that rulers must willingly act immorally when necessary, as the world rewards results, not goodness. This explains Mishkin's tragic fate. He either doesn't comprehend or refuses to accept society's unwritten rules. Lacking both the ability and desire to manipulate or deceive, he's labeled an idiot, not because he lacks intelligence, but because his goodness renders him vulnerable in a society thriving on competition and self-interest. Consider real-world parallels. How often do we witness genuinely kind, honest people being exploited? How frequently do we hear stories of good-hearted individuals betrayed by those they trusted? How many times have we ourselves felt foolish for believing in others' inherent goodness, only to face disappointment? This doesn't suggest complete corruption in the world, but undeniably, a certain shrewdness often proves necessary for survival. Even self-proclaimed virtuous individuals must occasionally compromise their values for self-protection. Despite this reality, we continue yearning for figures like Mishkin, individuals of unwavering goodness. Interestingly, Dostoyevsky doesn't portray Mishkin as a simple martyr. Beyond suffering, he challenges those around him in ways they cannot fully grasp. His goodness functions as a mirror, compelling others to confront their own shortcomings. This creates discomfort. Mishkin doesn't actively judge others, yet his very existence exposes their hypocrisy. His sincerity highlights their deception. His kindness makes their selfishness more glaringly obvious. Consequently, rather than acceptance, he faces rejection. This raises a fundamental question. Is Mishkin truly the fool, or has the world surrounding him lost its moral compass? What makes Mishkin's story particularly heartbreaking isn't just his suffering, but how others perceive him. He doesn't view himself as foolish. He believes wholeheartedly in love, honesty, and humanity's inherent goodness. Yet the more he attempts to brighten others' lives, the more they regard him as an outsider who doesn't belong in their world. Why does authentic goodness create such discomfort? The answer lies in how people interact. Human relationships, whether personal or societal, rest upon delicate power balances. Even in casual exchanges, unspoken negotiations occur beneath the surface. People carefully measure words, choose actions strategically, and adjust behaviors based on anticipated responses. It's a world of subtle manipulation, where even kindness, often comes with expectations of reciprocity. Mishkin refuses to participate in these games. He gives expecting nothing in return, speaks with complete honesty, without calculating potential reactions, and forgives without resentment even after. Repeated betrayal. In a world where everyone wears masks, he remains entirely unguarded, precisely why people distrust him. Psychologists have extensively studied cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable tension arising when confronted with information or behavior contradicting our self-perception. When Mishkin interacts with others, he forces them to face their moral contradictions. They may claim to value kindness, but when confronted with unconditional goodness, they feel exposed, realizing how far they've strayed from their ideals. Rather than accepting this uncomfortable truth, they reject the messenger. Consider how we often react to exceptionally virtuous individuals. When hearing about selfless people dedicating their lives to helping others, we admire them, but sometimes experience strange discomfort. We tell ourselves they differ fundamentally from us, that their selflessness seems unrealistic or impractical. We might even search for flaws, seeking evidence they aren't as pure as they appear. Why? Because accepting their goodness would require questioning our own choices, compromises, and moral justifications. This precisely describes Mishkin's situation. He becomes a symbol of something unattainable, an ideal admired theoretically, but rejected practically. His presence disrupts social order simply by existing. Through Mishkin, Dostoyevsky explores a deeper truth about human nature. We don't truly desire perfect goodness in our lives. We believe we do, but when confronted with it, we find it overwhelming, even suffocating. Goodness without calculation, boundaries, or typical human flaws confounds most people. Consequently, instead of elevating virtuous individuals, society often isolates them. Does this suggest goodness lacks meaning? That being virtuous constitutes a mistake? Here, the complexity deepens. Despite his suffering, Mishkin never regrets his kindness, never becomes bitter, never wishes to change his nature. Through this, Dostoyevsky offers profound insight. Goodnesses. Value doesn't depend on others' perception, but on its inherent nature. True goodness requires no validation, admiration, or reward. It exists, not because the world appreciates it, but because it represents the right way to live. This raises a final unsettling question that challenges everything discussed. If goodness possesses such purity and power, why does it frequently lead to suffering? Why do the most virtuous seem to endure the greatest hardships? If goodness truly holds value, why does it seemingly invite suffering? Why do the most honest, selfless, and compassionate individuals often face the most severe betrayals, disappointments, and hardships? This central dilemma in The Idiot shows Prince Mishkin doing everything possible to bring kindness and understanding into the world, yet instead of rewards, he faces ridicule, misunderstanding, and destruction. Dostoyevsky doesn't present this as meaningless tragedy. Rather, he compels us to examine suffering's nature more deeply. The connection between goodness and suffering appears undeniable, a theme explored throughout literature, philosophy, psychology, and religious thought. History's most revered figures, spiritual leaders, social reformers, great thinkers, often endured immense suffering. Jesus, Socrates, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. all dedicated their lives to justice, truth, and compassion, yet all faced opposition, persecution, and often violent ends. But why? Why does the world resist goodness rather than embrace it? One explanation suggests that true goodness disrupts established order, challenging the status quo and forcing people to confront their moral contradictions. Most people, consciously or not, resist confronting these contradictions, preferring to continue their lives without examining their selfishness, compromises, or willingness to prioritize personal gain over moral integrity. When Mishkin enters Russian high society, he doesn't fit within its structure. Those around him operate through hidden motives, strategic relationships, and constant power maneuvering. Mishkin participates in none of this, becoming an anomaly, something inexplicable and uncategorizable. What happens to anomalies? They either get absorbed into the system, forced to conform, or cast out. Mishkin, unwilling to change, ultimately faces rejection. This raises a crucial question. If suffering typically befalls good people, what purpose does goodness serve? Is it worthwhile? Dostoyevsky's answer proves complex, offering neither easy solutions nor suggesting goodness eventually receives worldly rewards. Instead, he presents an idea both unsettling and profoundly liberating. Goodness's value doesn't depend on the world's reaction to it. Goodness isn't about outcomes, praise, love, understanding, success, recognition, or external rewards. In its purest form, goodness exists for its own sake, valuable simply because it is good. This concept deeply challenges conventional conditioning. We learn to seek validation, measure actions by results, and expect fairness and justice for our efforts. But true goodness operates outside these principles. It isn't transactional, doesn't ask what will I receive in return. It simply exists. Yet a paradox emerges. If goodness exists independently of rewards, does it wield real power? If it doesn't change the surrounding world or lead to success or influence, what purpose does it serve? This final difficult question requires exploration because, although Mishkin suffers, he leaves an indelible impact on everyone he encounters. Even those rejecting or mocking him change through their interactions with him. This suggests goodness, while not always triumphing conventionally, possesses deeper, subtler, more enduring power than initially apparent. What constitutes this power? How does it shape the world in ways not immediately visible? If goodness isn't measured by rewards, what constitutes its true power? If the world rejects, ridicules, and even destroys genuinely good people, why does goodness persist? Why do individuals like Mishkin, seemingly misplaced in a world driven by ambition and self-interest, continue existing? The answer lies in something neither easily visible nor quantifiable. The quiet, often unnoticed ways authentic goodness transforms those contacting it. Throughout The Idiot, Mishkin never actively seeks to change others. He doesn't preach, attempt societal reform, or impose his ideals. Yet he leaves his mark on every life he touches. Even those hurting him cannot remain unaffected by his presence. His sincerity, compassion, and unwavering belief in others' goodness function as a mirror, reflecting back to people their deepest, most hidden aspects. This represents true goodness's secret power, revealing truth without force, demands, or manipulation. It simply exists, and through existence compels those nearby to confront their nature. Some embrace this revelation, others, unable to bear what they see, reject it. But no one remains unchanged. Consider moments in your life when you've encountered genuine kindness, freely given without expectations or hidden motives. Perhaps something seemingly insignificant. Yet, didn't it stay with you? Didn't it challenge you, even momentarily, to reconsider your actions, beliefs, or way of being? This explains why goodness, though often dismissed as weakness, actually constitutes one of existence's most powerful forces. It doesn't seek control, yet influences, doesn't fight, yet changes, doesn't demand, yet inspires. However, this power comes with costs. Dostoyevsky understood that in a world built on self-interest and survival, those embodying pure goodness often suffer. They face misunderstanding, exploitation, and feelings of not belonging. But he also recognized something more profound. The good suffering isn't meaningless or indicative of failure. On the contrary, it proves they remain true to themselves, in a world constantly attempting to corrupt them. In The Idiot's final pages, Mishkin's fate concludes, broken by the surrounding world's cruelty and complexity. But does this mean he was truly foolish, or was he ultimately the only one who saw reality clearly? Dostoyevsky provides no simple answer because none exists. Instead, he leaves us questioning. Is it better being worldly wise, protecting ourselves, and playing the game, or remaining true to our ideals despite suffering? Every person eventually faces this choice, and the answer isn't easy or black and white. Perhaps a well-lived life's true measure lies not in what we've gained, but in how much light we've brought into the world, regardless how small or unnoticed. The final revelation emerges. Goodness isn't about rewards, victory, or avoiding pain. True goodness exists not because the world values it, but because it represents the right way to be. Ultimately, whether society labels you fool or saint, whether remembered or forgotten, whether your kindness receives appreciation or rejection, what matters most is maintaining your authentic self. Because in a world where deception and self-interest often dominate, choosing goodness despite everything constitutes the most powerful choice possible.